Lecture we are going to study about the arid landforms. So arid landforms are the landforms which are formed in an area where the precipitation is low, that means the rain is low and the evaporation is high. Okay, so these areas are called as arid areas, and the landforms which are formed in these areas are called as arid landforms. Now, the arid landforms are characterized by badlands, then mushroom rocks, then dunes, then yardang, etc. Okay, so these features are typical in arid regions. So this type of structures you will find: badlands, mushroom rocks, then dunes, then yardang. So this type of structures, this type of features you will find in this arid area, that is the arid landforms. So we will study various types of arid landforms and their mechanism of formation. Okay, so now let's see what are the deserts. So deserts are regions with very less precipitation concentrated to a very short. 80% of the geographical areas in the world are deserts. So, okay, so the deserts are the regions with very less precipitation concentrated to a very short duration. They will have very short duration of the precipitation, that is the rain, and 20% of the geographical area in the world are deserts. Remember this is very important. Now there is certain definite pattern to the location of the world deserts. You will find all the major world deserts, they will be located or they will be confined within the 15 to 30 degree latitude, okay, on both sides of the equator. Almost all deserts are confined within the 15 to 30 degree latitude on both sides of the equator. Why this is happening, we are going to study about that when we study the climatology. Okay, for the time being, you only remember that the 15 to 30 degree latitudes on both sides of the equator you will find the deserts, and deserts are generally located in the west coast of the continent as the trade winds are offshore. Now this is also something which we will study when we look into the climatology aspect. Okay, when we study the climatology, in that chapter we are going to study about this, why deserts are found on the western coast, on the western side of the continents. Okay, so we will study about that in detail, don't worry. So they are bathed by cold currents which produce a desiccating effect so that moisture is not easily condensed into precipitation. So because of the cold currents also, there will be low precipitation on the western coast of the continents, and due to this we also find the western coast mainly have the cold deserts, the deserts on the western coast of the continents. Now let's see what are the types of the deserts. So we will find there are rocky deserts, then there are some stony deserts, then there are some sandy deserts, then again there are badlands, and then there are mountain deserts. So first we will start with the rocky desert, then we will study stony, sandy, badland and mountain. So first start with the rocky. So the rocky deserts are the deserts where majorly in this region you will find this type of rocks. The physical feature is characterized by big boulders or rocks. So this is the speciality of this rocky deserts, that mainly you will find the big boulders or rocks in this rocky deserts. That is the simple reason why they are called as rocky desert. Okay, you got it. Now the next type of desert is the stony desert, where the small type of stones you will find. Okay, this type of small stones you will find where there are no big rocks, but these big rocks are weathered into the small stones now, and this is the speciality of the stony deserts. And one of the important stony desert is Stewart Stony Desert. Okay, Stewart Stony Desert, which is in Australia. So this is in Australia. When we studied the world geography. So if you see in the world geography, when we studied about the Australia, at that time we saw the location of the Stewart Stony Desert. Okay, so these are the stony deserts. Now there are sandy deserts. If you have visited Rajasthan, you must have seen this type of deserts in Rajasthan. So we find this type of deserts in Rajasthan. Okay, so the specialty of the deserts is we will find dunes, sand dunes. Okay, we find sand dunes in this sand deserts. Okay, we will find lot of sand. So this is the specialty of the sandy deserts. And then there are badlands. If you are from the northern part of India, and if you have visited this Chambal area, or the area which is some part of the Madhya Pradesh, some part of Uttar Pradesh, okay, and this area where the Chambal flows, in that area you will find this type of features. Okay, अगर आप चंबल एरिया में अगर कभी घूमे हो, okay, कभी गए हो वहां पर, तो आपको यहां पर मिलेगा this type of structure. Okay, you will find this type of features, and these are called as badlands. Earlier these badlands were not, they had a different type of feature, but due to erosion, first the vegetation was cut off, and when the vegetation was cleared, the soil got loosened, and when the soil got loosened, it started to erode. So the erosion started to happen, and due to erosion these badlands were created. Okay, okay, so the result of erosion, badlands are the result of erosion. Now then there are mountain deserts. Okay, so the mountain deserts are the deserts which are found on the mountains. So mountains are eroded, and you will find this type of deserts on the mountains. Or high temperature area. Okay, so this type of mountain deserts you will find either they are because of the erosion, or they are in the high temperature area. Okay, so these type of features are called as mountain deserts. So now we have seen the deserts. So type of deserts, if you have to revise, we will find there are rocky, then there are stony, then there are sandy, then there are badlands, and the last one is the mountain deserts. Okay, so these are the types of deserts. Now the mechanism of the arid erosion. How is the arid erosion going on? So the arid landforms are the result of many combined factors, okay, and one reacting upon the other. So each factor is reacting upon the other to create this kind of arid landforms. So low precipitation and high rate of evaporation are the major causes of the aridity. As we have seen earlier when we started this lesson, I told you initially only that the arid landforms are created because of the temperature difference. Okay, that means the precipitation, the rainfall is very low, and the evaporation is very high. Okay, so because of this arid landform, the arid areas are created. So the desert rocks devoid of vegetation, they don't have any vegetation. So desert rocks, they don't have any vegetation, and they are exposed to mechanical and chemical weathering processes, and due to drastic diurnal temperature changes. Now when in summers, that is in the arid areas, if you go, you will find that the day temperature is very high, and the night temperature, it is very low. During daytime the temperature will be high, and in the night the temperature will be very low. Why? let me tell you one thing. The speciality of the characteristic of a sand or a rock is that it will absorb the heat very quickly and get heated very quickly. Okay, so it gets heated very quickly, heats quickly, and it loses its energy also very quickly. So it's okay. So the sand or a rock, it is the physical feature of the sand or a rock, or is a variety or the speciality of the sand or a rock, that the sand or the rock, it will get heated very quickly, it will absorb the heat very quickly, and the temperature will increase. And when the sun sets, the sun goes down, and that time it will lose out its heat very quickly, so it will cool up also very quickly. So this is the speciality of the sand or a rock, and this helps into the erosion of the rocks or the physical feature in the arid area. Okay, so the exposed to mechanical and chemical weathering processes due to drastic diurnal temperature changes. So this, the change in the temperature, in daytime it will be very high and in the night time it will be very low. So this thing is called as the change in the diurnal temperature. Diurnal means in a day. In the day, the daytime it is very high, nighttime it is very low. So this is a diurnal change of the temperature. And then the decay faster and wind changes decay faster, and wind and the torrential rain help in the removing and weathered material easily. Then whatever the material is weathered, the wind and the rain, they help in removing the weathered material easily. So what is weathering? Now when we were studying about the weathering, that time we have learned what is weathering. So we will have an overlook on this. So this is the most important factor of denudation in arid regions. So weathering, it is the most important factor in this arid region. So weathering is defined as the breakdown of rocks by agents of weathering acting in situ. Okay, that means inside it. So mechanical weathering and chemical weathering dominates in this arid landforms. Remember, mechanical as well as chemical, two are very important in this arid region. So without abundant water in the arid environment, the chemical breakdown of rock proceeds extremely slowly. However, the mechanical breakdown of rock proceeds relatively quickly in arid climate. Okay, now we have seen that mechanical weathering and chemical weathering dominates in the arid landforms, but mechanical weathering will be very high. Why? Because of the less water which is present there. So the chemical breakdown of the rock proceeds extremely slowly. However, the mechanical breakdown of the rock proceeds relatively quickly in the arid climate. Now the drastic diurnal temperature changes in deserts causes stress in the rocks due to continuous expansion and contraction, and this stress helps in speeding up the weathering process through exfoliation of the outer rock surface. Okay, so as we have seen, the rocks get heats up and it expands, and when in the night time it gets cooled down and it contracts. Okay, so due to this expansion and contraction, the stress is created and it disintegrates, it exfoliates, okay, and gives the rise to new types of arid landforms. Then wind action is also very important. So as an erosional agent, the wind is more effective in arid regions than humid regions. Okay, as in arid regions there is a little moisture and vegetation to bind the loose material. Now the more loose material it will be there, the more it will be blown away by the wind. Wind needs the loose material to take away with it. Okay, so that's why wind will work more in the arid regions and it will have less effect in the moisturous region. Okay, so the wind action creates a number of interesting erosional and depositional features in the deserts. Wind is very important. It creates different type of erosional as well as depositional structures, depositional features in the desert regions. So wind erosion is carried out in desert areas in mainly three ways, and that is deflation, abrasion and attrition. Deflation means the loose material which is there, it is blown away by the wind. Then abrasion is, now this loose material, that is the sand which is there, it is blown away by the wind, and when this sand is blown away by the wind as well as sand will hit the rock structure. Both this loose sand material is blown away by the wind, and wind as well as this sand will hit the rock structure and they will erode the rock structure, and this is called as abrasion. पहले तो विंड जो है लूज सैंड को बहाकर लेके जा रही है, और जब ये विंड और सैंड कंबाइन टुगेदर किसी रॉक को जाकर टकराती है तो वो क्या करेगी, उसको इरोड करेगी, ठीक है, उसको इरोड करेगी, उसको हिट करेगी, उसको इरोड करेगी, स्लोली एंड स्टेडीली इट विल वर्क ऑन इट एंड द रॉक विल गेट इरोडेड, एंड दिस इज कॉल्ड एज abrasion. And attrition, the friction among themselves only, the friction among the eroded particles is called as attrition, as simple as that to put. Okay, जो eroded material है वो अपने आप में ही अपने आप में ही अट्रिशन कर रहा है, अपने आप में ही फ्रिक्शन हो रहा है, और ये फ्रिक्शन की वजह से वो एक फाइनर पार्टिकल्स में कन्वर्ट होते हैं. अगर ये बड़ा कोई मटेरियल है और वो छोटे मटेरियल से जब विंड बहा कर लेके जा रही है तो वो अपने आप, वो जब विंड के साथ में है तो अपने आप में ही वो कोलाइड करते हैं एंड दे गेट फाइनर, दे गेट पॉलिश्ड. ओके, when they are blowing away with the wind, they will collide among themselves and they will try to wear away each other, and they will get converted into fine and polished type of particles. Okay, and they may get converted into a fine silt or sand. Okay, so these we have three: deflation, abrasion and attrition. Attrition is among the particles only, abrasion is on the rock structures, and deflation is the loosened particle is get blown away by the wind. Now in deflation, we have studied deflation includes lifting and blowing away of dust and smaller particles from the surface of the rocks. We have seen that. Abrasion, the sand blasting of rock surface by winds when they hurl sand particles against them, is called abrasion. The impact of such blasting results in rock surface being scratched, polished and worn away. So we have seen that, I have explained you. And attrition, so when wind-borne particles roll against one another in a collision, they wear each other away, and this process is called as attrition. So we have found these three types of wind action. Now many features of deserts owe their formation to mass wasting and running water as sheet floods. So through rain, though rain is scarce in deserts, it comes down torrentially in a short period of time. ठीक है, रेन ऐसे भी बहुत कम होता है, बट जब भी रेन आता है बहुत बरसता है, बहुत थोड़ी देर के लिए बरसता है लेकिन बहुत बरसता है. ओके, इट फॉल्स फॉर लेस टाइम, बट व्हेन इट फॉल्स इट पोर्स. ओके, so due to this it will erode away all the material. So stream channels in desert areas are broad, smooth and indefinite and flow for a brief time after rains. And the desert rocks devoid of vegetation, exposed to mechanical and chemical weathering processes due to drastic diurnal temperature changes and decay faster, and these weathered materials are easily carried away by torrential rainfall. So whatever material is eroded, that will get carried away by the torrential rainfall. Now let's see what are the types of arid landforms. So arid landforms are again divided into two parts. First part is erosional landforms, second part is the depositional landforms. ठीक है, ये पहला erosional landform और दूसरा है तुम्हारा depositional landform. So erosional landform जिसमें तुम्हारा सारा जो मटेरियल जो है, the rocks, they are getting eroded, and in the depositional landforms they are getting deposited. The whatever material is eroded from the rocks, they will get deposited somewhere, so that will form the depositional landforms. What are the erosional landforms? So you will find the rock pedestal or mushroom rocks, then yardangs, then mesas and buttes, and then Inselberg, and then Ventifacts. Okay, so rock pedestals or mushroom rocks, then Yardangs, then Messas and Buttes, and then Inselberg, and then Ventifacts. So these are the erosional landforms: mushroom rock, Yardang, then Mesa table and Buttes, and then Inselberg and the Ventifacts. So first, let's start with the rock pedestal or mushroom rocks. So if you see, पहले ये जो था ये same rock structure था. This was a single rock structure, a whole rock structure. Okay, but what happened over a period of time? The winds were blowing from different directions, from this direction, from this direction, and from this direction, from this direction. All the directions the wind was blowing. Now this part of the rock was hard, and this was smooth. Okay, so the upper part is hard, the lower part is smooth. Now, so when the winds are blowing along with the sands which is bringing from the areas, it will hit this area. Okay, it will hit this area and it will erode it. So over a period of time, the process will go on and continue, and after a while, it will result into this type of rocks, and that is called as mushroom rocks. क्योंकि ये mushroom जैसे दिखते हैं. Okay, they look like mushroom, that's why they are called as mushroom rock. Nothing complicated, don't get worried about that. Here you also can see. So mainly in the mushroom rocks, the erosion is on the lower side. Okay, lower side. Remember this, in the mushroom rocks, the erosion is in the lower side. Here you can see the erosion is in the lower side, and the upper part which is hard, that is not weared very easily, that's why it remains as it is, but the lower side it is weared away. Okay, so here you can see these are the mushroom rocks. Now you will find Yardangs. So what are Yardangs? Now for example, if I tell you that, we will take an example. So this is the land surface. These are the rocks actually in the desert area. The soil above it, it is eroded. Okay, the soil above it, it is eroded, and we have only this rock structure which is present in the desert area. It may be a huge plateau, like it may be a huge plain like area also in the desert. Now what will happen, if it has an alternate layer of hard and rock, so this may be a hard surface, this may be a smooth, again this may be a hard, this may be a smooth. Okay, so if it has alternate structure of hard and smooth, so the smooth rock, it will get eroded by the wind, okay, or water. So the smooth part, it will get eroded. It will get eroded by the wind or water. Here you can see the smooth part is getting eroded by wind or water, and only this structure will remain. Only these structures will remain. This type of structures will remain. Here you can see this type of structures will remain. So this is same thing with the Yardangs. So these Yardangs, these were the hard rocks which did not get eroded, but in between here it were made up of smooth rocks which got eroded very easily. And when the winds were blowing in this direction, at that time it eroded the softer area, the softer rocks. It eroded the softer rocks, but the hard part, this is the hard part. Here you can see this is the hard part. It did not get eroded easily. And so when the the rocky hill, it gets eroded from all the sides by the wind, it results into the formation of a mesa. And again the mesa, if the mesa is again eroded, and the remnant of the mesa will be called as the butte. So here you can see this is the remnant of the mesa. This is the remnant of this mesa. Okay. Then Inselberg. So Inselberg is the hard rock structure which is not eroded easily, but it stands out like a smooth structure, smooth round. The smooth round structure mainly because it is made up of hard rock. Okay. Mainly that is made up of hard rock, and that is the reason it is not weared away easily, but still the action of the winds is going on, but it is not, the winds are not able to wear it away, but they are polishing it. Okay, so it is polishing it, and you will find this type of dome like structures or the structures which are standing out single-handedly in the region. So these are called as Inselberg. And now the next are Ventifacts. Now the Ventifacts are the rocks which had fractures, which had some small holes, and the winds were blowing along with the sand particles, and they made holes in this. Okay, so these holes, if you can see, these are made by the winds along with the sand. Here you can see the sand got accumulated, and when the winds blow, they bring sand with that, and the sand erodes this rock, and it results into the sharp edges. Okay, so the Ventifacts will have sharp edges, and they will also have holes in it. Okay, so here you can see the holes in it, and they will have this sharp edges because winds are flowing from all directions, from this direction also, and from that direction also. So the winds are blowing from all directions, and it will result into the formation of the Ventifacts. So these are the erosional landforms of the arid area. Now let's see the depositional landforms. So what are the depositional landforms in the arid area? So mainly we will find dunes and loess. So dunes are very important. There are different types of dunes. We are going to study about the dunes now. So if you see, these are the whatever the material was eroded by the winds, and the silt or the sand which was eroded by the winds from the rock structures, they will take away with them. But when the velocity of the winds will decrease, or when the capacity of the winds to carry the sand will decrease, that time it will not be able to carry all the sand, and it will deposit it somewhere. Or when the winds are obstructed by any obstruction, it may be a sand, it may be a natural or a man-made structure. Okay, so it may be a small plant, or it may be a shrub, or it may be a tree. So this will be an obstruction for the wind, and it will be depositing all the sand or silt which it has brought with it. So, and it will result into the formation of different type of dunes depending on how the obstruction is. So here you can see the wind is blowing, and it had an obstruction in this middle. Okay, the middle area it had an obstruction. So the winds were blowing, and it had obstruction, so it deposited all the winds, all the sand here, and it resulted into the creation of a barkhan. So this type of dunes, in which the tail of the dune is in the direction of the wind. So this is the direction of the wind. Here if you can see, this is the direction of the wind, and the tails here, this is the tail. So in barkhans, the tails are in wind direction. Remember this. Okay, the tail is in the barkhans, the tail is in the wind direction. So here you can see, so the barkhans will be formed. Now when the wind changes its direction, now the wind was flowing in one direction, but now the wind has changed its direction. When the winds continue to keep on changing its direction, that time the star dunes will be formed. Here you can see the star type structure. Earlier the wind were flowing in this direction, but later on they changed this direction, again they changed the direction, again they changed the direction. So due to this, a star dune will be formed. Okay, now again, if they have any horizontal obstruction, they will start to deposit. When the wind faces the horizontal obstruction, the wind will deposit the sand in an horizontal direction. Okay, so that's why it is called as transverse dune. So transverse dune, you can see these are the types of transverse dune. This is the wind direction and it is depositing all the sand in this horizontal way. Again, the parabolic dunes. In parabolic dunes, you should remember they are something like barkans only, but the tail will be in the opposite direction of the wind. Okay, tails are in the opposite direction. This is direction. Okay, so the tails of a parabolic dune are in the opposite direction of the wind. For example, the wind is flowing in this direction, so at that time the tails of the parabolic dune will be in the opposite direction of the wind. So remember this. When the wind faces any obstruction which is parallel to its direction, okay, when the wind is flowing in this when the wind is blowing in this direction and it faces the obstruction which is the parallel, so this will be called as longitudinal dunes. So these are the longitudinal dunes, remember this. So the longitudinal dunes, the parabolic dunes, the star dunes, and the barkans and the transverse. So these are the different type of dunes. Okay, then again one more dune is there is called as a sieve. So sieve is something like barkan only, but its structure will be something like this. Barkans are semicircular, but sieve will be something like this. Okay, this type. Here you can see this is sieve. They are similar to barkan only, but there will be a slightly different structure of the sieve. So these are all various types of dunes. Now one more thing is loess. So whatever the sand which is brought by the winds, if they deposit in some area far away from the erosion area, at that time that is called as loess. So this is the loess. The sand is deposited here far away from the erosional area. So this area is far away from erosional area. Then the loess is created. So here you can see this area was far away from the erosional area of the arid landforms, and it got deposited in this area, and due to this the sand was accumulated. So this is all about the arid landforms. In our next lesson we are going to study about the atmosphere. Okay, what kind of atmosphere we have around our earth, and what kind of what is the composition of the atmosphere, which is very useful for our survival. So we are going to study about that in detail.